pain in my right groin, and then obviously had some tests and other things done. And there was no decision of like, this is the end of my season. I had full intention of.
What if I told you that everything we've been told about Caitlin Clark's injury might be a lie? That behind the closed doors of Indiana's practice facility, something far bigger is happening. Something the WNBA doesn't want you to know. For weeks, fans have mourned her season as over. The groin injury, the rehab, the silence, it all looked like the story had ended. But now, whispers are starting to spread. Whispers that Clark has been training again, quietly, at night, with a handful of Fever staff sworn to secrecy. Whispers that the most electric player in women's basketball might actually be preparing for the impossible. A shocking, last-minute return for the WNBA Finals. Sounds crazy, right? That's what they want you to think. Because if this rumor turns out to be true, it wouldn't just change the playoffs, it would rewrite WNBA history. At first glance, it all sounds like wild fan fiction, a fairy tale built on desperation and hope. But here's where things start getting real. There's a rule buried deep in the WNBA's collective bargaining agreement, a clause most people, including analysts and even some coaches, don't pay attention to. It's small, technical, almost invisible, but it's powerful. It gives teams the right to reactivate players who are already under contract but listed as inactive for injuries, suspensions, or maternity leave if a roster spot opens. You see where this is going? Caitlin Clark isn't a free agent. She's still under contract. She's part of the Fever, which means, technically, there's a legal path, however narrow, that could allow her to return if the Fever reach the finals. Suddenly, the line between fantasy and possibility starts to blur. Think about the timing. The Indiana Fever weren't even supposed to make the playoffs. At the start of the season, the analysts called them too young, too raw, too inexperienced. Then Clark went down and everyone wrote them off completely. But this team, this gritty, fearless group, refused to die. They clawed their way into the semifinals and now sit one win away from the finals. That's when the whispers started getting louder. Fans noticed the Fever's playoff roster submission had only 11 names, even though the league allows 12. That missing slot wasn't an accident. It was intentional. And when reporters asked why, the team's front office gave vague non-answers. Roster flexibility. Strategic choice. We like where we are. Translation: we're leaving the door open for something big. Behind the scenes, people started connecting dots. A staffer spotted Caitlin Clark leaving the training facility long after midnight. Another insider claimed she's been working one-on-one with the Fever's medical team, not just rehabbing, but conditioning, running drills, shooting. They said she looked sharp, confident, determined. There are even reports that she's been practicing in a closed gym with her longtime trainer, using blackout curtains to keep prying eyes away. If true, that would mean Clark's rehab isn't just about recovery, it's about preparation. Preparation for something nobody expected. Something the league might not be ready to handle. And let's talk about that league for a second, because the WNBA isn't blind. They know the kind of power Caitlin Clark brings. She's not just a player. She's a brand, a movement, a walking headline. Her game shattered viewership records. Her jerseys sold out nationwide. Every arena she played in was packed to the rafters. When she went down, ratings dipped. Ticket demand slowed. Momentum faltered. That's not speculation. That's data. And the WNBA, which has fought for visibility for decades, knows exactly how much that matters. Which raises the question, if Clark is medically cleared, would the league quietly allow her activation? Some insiders think yes. Because of finals featuring Caitlin Clark, the comeback, the spotlight. The story would be the biggest marketing dream the WNBA could ever script. But let's not ignore the other side of this. There are people, executives, players, even media members who think it's all too risky. You don't gamble with a rookie's health, one insider reportedly said. Not for one playoff run. They're not wrong. Groin injuries are brutal. They heal slow and re-tear fast. Bringing Clark back before she's truly ready could risk not just her season, but her career. Yet, those close to her say she's different. She's built from something else. That fire that made her a legend at Iowa hasn't dimmed. If anything, the injury lit it even brighter. Word is, Clark's been pushing her doctors, insisting she feels ready, begging for clearance. "If I can walk," she supposedly told one teammate, "I can play." And here's where it gets even more complicated. The Fever themselves. This team has found an identity without her. Aaliyah Boston has emerged as a dominant force, leading like a veteran. Kelsey Mitchell has gone nuclear from beyond the arc. Natasha Howard, Odyssey Sims, and even Sophie Cunningham have given Indiana a toughness no one saw coming. They're not just winning, they're believing. That's where the dilemma lies. Do you risk breaking that chemistry to bring Clark back, even if she's your franchise star? Some coaches would say no. You dance with the team that brought you here. But others know that championship windows are rare. And if you have a once-in-a-generation player itching to play, you find a way to make it happen. Chemistry be damned. Now, here's the twist no one saw coming. That open roster spot the Fever left. League insiders believe it wasn't just left open for flexibility, it was negotiated, quietly, behind the scenes. Before the playoffs even began, multiple teams reportedly questioned the Fever's decision to submit only 11 names. But Indiana's front office, according to one executive, made a call to the league office seeking clarification on injury activations during the postseason. They were asking the kind of questions you only ask if you're planning something, the source said. That means this wasn't accidental. It was strategic. It was premeditated. They might have been preparing for a Clark return long before the rest of us even realized it was possible. And if you think that sounds far-fetched, consider this. During the Fever's recent media availability, a reporter asked head coach Christy Sides directly whether Caitlin Clark could return if the team reached the finals. Her response: a pause, a smirk. Then we'll see what happens. No denial, no shutdown. Just a cryptic answer that sent social media into a frenzy. Fans dissected her tone, her smile, her choice of words. Was it a tease, a hint, or a simple coincidence? Either way, it was enough to reignite the fire. Suddenly, Caitlin Clark's finals return wasn't just a rumor, it was trending. But maybe the most telling moment came from Clark herself. Just a few days ago, she posted an Instagram story, a picture of her sneakers on the hardwood floor. The caption reading, "Patience is power." Within minutes, it was deleted. But not before thousands of fans screenshotted it and began speculating. Was it just motivational? Or a cryptic signal that she's closer than anyone thinks? Her silence since then has only made it more suspicious. Sometimes no words say everything. All of this leads to one chilling thought. Maybe this was the plan all along. Maybe the Fever knew exactly what they were doing. Maybe Clark's season-ending injury announcement was a strategic move, buying her time to recover without constant media pressure. While keeping opponents guessing, think about it. If you're the Fever, why reveal your biggest weapon early? Why not let the league sleep on you, count you out, and then unleash the most shocking twist of the season at the finals? The element of surprise is powerful, especially when the surprise is a generational superstar. And that's what makes this story so addictive. It's not just about basketball anymore. It's about secrets, strategy, and the thin line between truth and illusion. The Fever might be sitting on the greatest bluff in WNBA history, and the league might be complicit. Because, let's face it, everyone wins if Clark returns. The Fever get their star back. The league gets its ratings surge. The fans get their fairy tale. The only real question left is whether her body is ready and whether anyone has the courage to actually pull the trigger. Because if Caitlin Clark walks out of that tunnel in Game 1 of the WNBA Finals, the world will stop. The cameras will shake. The noise will be deafening. And the story, her story, will go from tragedy to triumph in a heartbeat. The girl who fell, rising again when it matters most. That's the kind of moment that lives forever. And deep down, maybe that's exactly what's coming. What if I told you there's a secret meeting the WNBA never wanted the public to find out about? A meeting that could decide not just Caitlin Clark's future, but the entire direction of the league. Late one night in New York, just days before the Fever's semifinal Game 3. Multiple insiders claim a small group of league officials gathered behind closed doors. No cameras. No reporters. No formal press release. The topic: the Caitlin Clause. That's what they're calling it now, the loophole that could bring Clark back for the finals. They weren't there to debate whether the rule existed. They were there to decide whether they should use it. And according to those who know, the room was divided right down the middle. On one side were the business minds, the marketing chiefs, the network liaisons, the executives who understand what Clark represents. To them, she isn't just a player. She's a phenomenon. A once-in-a-generation force who moves ratings, sells out arenas, and turns casual viewers into lifelong fans. If there's even a 1% chance she can play, we have to let it happen, one of them allegedly argued. You don't hide your biggest star during your biggest moment. They weren't talking about basketball. They were talking about business, about brand, about how the finals without Clark would feel like a party without music. But across the table sat the purists, the ones who still believe in rules, in fairness, in integrity. If you bend the system for her, a senior operations member reportedly said, you'll never be able to unbend it. They worried it would look like favoritism, that other teams would cry foul, especially the defending champions, the Las Vegas Aces, who've already been vocal about what they call special treatment. Surrounding the Fever's schedule and media coverage all year, imagine the fallout if the league approved a late activation just for Clark. The Aces would call it rigged. Rival coaches would demand investigations. It could ignite chaos right before the biggest series of the year. And that's the chessboard the WNBA finds itself trapped on. On one side, the most valuable star the sport has ever seen. On the other, the fragile balance of fairness and credibility. Whichever way they move, someone's going to get burned. Meanwhile, in Indiana, the tension's been rising too. You can feel it in the locker room, in the post-game interviews, even in the players' body language. Aaliyah Boston, the heart and anchor of this team, has been the picture of leadership. But insiders say even she's been asking quiet questions. What happens if Caitlin's cleared? That question reportedly floated through the team facility like a ghost. Some players are thrilled by the idea. They know Clark's return would make them instant favorites. But others? They're cautious. They've fought their way here without her. They've built chemistry, rhythm, and trust. Suddenly, inserting a superstar, no matter how great, could throw everything off. One assistant coach put it bluntly: you can't plug lightning into an already burning fuse and not expect sparks. And yet, every day, more signs point to something brewing. A local reporter spotted Clark's personal trainer in Indianapolis last week, the same one who worked with her before the draft. Another fan swore she saw Clark's parents entering the Fever facility after hours. It might mean nothing, or it might mean everything. Because if Clark's inner circle is gathering in Indiana right before the finals, it's not for moral support. It's for preparation. Here's where things get even wilder. Several Fever staff members have reportedly been required to sign new non-disclosure agreements this month. That's not standard playoff procedure. NDAs that late in the season. That's the kind of move teams make when they're protecting sensitive information, like a secret medical clearance or a comeback plan. And if you think the players don't notice, think again. One unnamed veteran reportedly told a reporter if she's coming back, they better tell us soon, because you don't drop a bomb like that on game day. Now, let's zoom out, because while Indiana quietly buzzes with rumors, national networks are already sniffing around. ESPN producers have been reaching out to the league for logistics contingency plans. TNT staffers have allegedly been told to be ready for schedule adjustments. You don't make those calls unless you're preparing for something monumental. And what could be more monumental than Caitlin Clark walking into Game 1 of the finals in full uniform? But maybe the biggest sign of all came from Clark herself. A video leak that hit social media for less than 20 minutes before being scrubbed. The clip, allegedly recorded by a staff member, showed Clark jogging through light shooting drills in fever gear. Her movements looked clean, controlled, no limp, no hesitation. She drained 5 straight threes from deep before the video cut off. Fans went into meltdown mode. "She's back" trended instantly across Twitter, TikTok, and Reddit. But within half an hour, every version of the clip vanished. Accounts that posted it were suddenly restricted for copyright. Coincidence? Or quiet league intervention? Because make no mistake, if that footage was legit, it confirmed everything fans have been whispering for weeks. Caitlin Clark is healthy, and she's waiting. Of course, the league denies all of it. Officially, Clark is still undergoing rehabilitation. But what's interesting is how careful they are with their wording. They're no longer saying out for the season. They're saying under evaluation. That one subtle change might be the biggest clue yet. Because in sports, when language changes, policy usually follows. And policy changes mean doors are opening even if they don't want the public to know it yet. Meanwhile, the fans aren't waiting for confirmation. They're already treating it like destiny. Fever merchandise sales have spiked again. Season ticket interest for next year through the roof. And in local sports bars around Indianapolis, they've started calling this potential finals run the resurrection. Everyone feels like something magical, something once in a lifetime is about to happen. Still, the people closest to Clark insist it's not about the fame, not about the cameras. It's personal. They say she feels like she owes it to her team, the team that kept fighting when the world counted them out. One of her closest friends from college reportedly said she's not sleeping much. She keeps watching the Fever games on replay. She's obsessed. Every time Boston hits a big shot, Caitlin whispers, "I should be out there." That's not marketing talk. That's obsession. That's the drive of someone who's ready to break the rules just to compete again. And maybe that's exactly what she'll have to do. Because sources inside the league office say if Indiana files the activation paperwork, it won't be smooth sailing. It could trigger a full-blown review by the WNBA Competition Committee. They could deny it, delay it, or bury it in procedural processing until the finals are over. But even that delay might not stop her. There are rumblings that Clark's representation is already drafting an appeal, citing player rights and medical eligibility. If she pushes it, it could turn into a public standoff. The league's biggest star versus the league itself. And that's a headline no one wants, but everyone would watch. Imagine the optics. Game 1, cameras everywhere, the Fever warming up. Suddenly, the crowd roars, and there she is. Clark in full uniform, jogging onto the court, smiling like she never left. The officials pause. The aces stare in disbelief. The announcers lose their minds. She's back. The broadcast would scream. The ratings would spike. The world would tune in. And somewhere deep inside the WNBA offices, a handful of people would exchange knowing looks. Because maybe, just maybe, they saw this coming all along. Whether that moment actually happens or not, one thing's already certain. The WNBA has never been this alive. Every conversation, every interview, every headline, it all circles back to Caitlin Clark. Her shadow hangs over the playoffs like a ghost. And no matter what the official reports say, the whispers keep growing louder. She's close. She's ready. She's waiting for the call. And if Indiana wins just one more game, that call might finally come. Because here's the truth, nobody wants to say out loud the WNBA needs Caitlin Clark as much as Caitlin Clark needs the game. And both sides know it. That's what makes this story more than a comeback. It's a collision course between business and belief, rules and redemption. And somewhere in the middle stands a 22-year-old rookie who's already carrying the weight of an entire league on her shoulders. Carrying the weight of an entire league on her shoulders. Hat, if everything we've seen, every press conference, every carefully worded update, every no comment wasn't about protecting Caitlin Clark's health at all, but protecting the WNBA's control over her story. Because if that's true, And what's really been happening behind the scenes is bigger than any injury report or playoff highlight reel. It's a quiet power struggle, one that's been brewing since the day Clark first stepped onto a professional court and instantly changed everything the league thought it knew about fame, influence, and fan power. From the moment her jersey sales broke records and her name outtrended the finals MVP, certain people in high places began to feel it. The balance had shifted. The old guard wasn't in charge anymore, the audience was. And the audience only wanted her. That's the uncomfortable truth hanging over every decision being made in those closed rooms right now. Because no matter how much the league tries to appear united, the cracks are showing. Insiders claim that the marketing team has already drafted 2 separate versions of the WNBA Finals promo material, one featuring the Fever without Clark, and another where her name and image are front and center. The second version, apparently, has been locked away in a drive labeled confidential. Why make 2? Simple. Because no one can agree on what happens next. The medical advisors are pushing caution. The sponsors are pushing urgency. And Clark, she's pushing herself through pain that no camera has yet captured, determined to make her own decision. Not the league's, they say. She's been spotted practicing alone in an empty gym long after midnight, with no cameras, no teammates, and no trainers. Just her, the ball, and that echoing sound of determination that only athletes at her level understand. It's not about money anymore. It's not about fame, endorsements, or revenge. It's about control. For months, she's been told when to speak, when to sit, and when to stay silent. But now, for the first time, she might be ready to take her narrative back. And if that means returning in the finals, even for 1/2, 1/4, 1 possession, she'll do it. Because for her, legacy isn't built by permission. It's built by defiance. And that's what makes this situation terrifying for the WNBA's upper circle. Because Caitlin Clark doesn't just bring numbers, she brings narrative. She turns every game into a headline, every foul into a national debate, and every silence into a trending topic. That kind of influence can't be managed. It can only be contained. And the league's biggest fear isn't that she'll get hurt again, it's that she'll come back stronger physically, mentally, and symbolically, exposing everything they tried to control. Her return wouldn't just alter the finals. It would rewrite the entire story of women's basketball. Rumors now suggest that even some Fever teammates have begun to sense something brewing. There's been a shift in tone, quiet smiles, cryptic social media posts, and a noticeable uptick in gym activity. "We're not done yet," one player reportedly said after practice when asked about Clark's absence. The words might sound innocent, but fans read between the lines. The Fever are preparing for something, maybe not official, maybe not confirmed, but something big. It's the kind of energy that teams only carry when they know a secret no one else does. Meanwhile, the league office remains silent, issuing the same vague press lines about progress evaluations and ongoing assessments. But that silence is starting to sound louder than any statement they could make. Every day that passes without clarity fuels more speculation. Every leak, every insider tip, every mysterious travel report adds to the chaos. And as October edges closer to the finals, the story is shifting from will Clark return to can the WNBA survive her return? Because make no mistake, if she steps onto that court, the entire sports world will stop. Imagine it. The arena lights dim, the Fever's bench rises, and the crowd suddenly roars louder than they ever have before. A figure in red and yellow steps out from the tunnel, her hair pulled back, her face unreadable. And the entire league, every rival, every critic, every executive realizes the moment they've been dreading is here. Caitlin Clark, back on the court, not as a symbol of injury recovery, but as a storm, a statement, a reckoning. The sound of her first dribble echoes like a heartbeat across the floor, not just in Indianapolis, but across every corner of the sports world that doubted her. And if that happens, the WNBA will have no choice but to face its reflection. Because Clark's return won't just test her body. It'll test the league's integrity, its leadership, and its willingness to adapt to the world she's already reshaped. For months, they tried to contain her story. But maybe, just maybe, she was never meant to be contained at all. So the real question now isn't if she's coming back. It's whether the league is ready for what happens when she does. Because once Caitlin Clark takes that floor again, there will be no more hiding, no more managing, and no more pretending. The truth, the whole, raw, uncomfortable truth will finally play out in front of millions. And one way or another, the WNBA will never be the same. It will never be the same.